Hi friends, Mindy here. Today I am making a journal out of the fabrics that you could get to coordinate with the kit Walk This Way from Bythewell4God. This month they released these beautiful fabrics that coordinate. And so what I have done here is I've taken some heat bond. I'm not for sure exactly what it's called. I am not a seamstress, so anyway, I just have ironed it to the back of both of these pieces of fabric. These measure 10 by 12. I'm hoping my finished journal is going to be about roughly 5 by 7. So I am going to be covering some chipboard with this fabric. So I have taken it to my iron already and ironed the one side to get the adhesive part onto this fabric, and now I'm just kind of cutting it down. I've turned the fabric sideways so that I can get use the most out of it for my journal. So I am going again I'm hoping for a 5 by 7 finished size, and since these are only 10 by 12, what I'll be doing is using that other piece, that green piece, to kind of cover and wrap for the spine. So I'm taking this very fancy cupcake box. I had to empty my kids' snacks out of it so that I would have something to use. But this is just a really thin cardboard. You could use anything. I recommend doing this if you're creating journals. It's an easy way to do it. I needed something that was kind of lightweight and not too thick. If I had used a thicker card like chipboard, it would have caused problems with how much fabric I had to use. So I just went with something that was really thin, but for what I'm doing for today, it should be fine. And I'm cutting these down to about 7 1/4 by 5 1/4. I want there to be a little bit of an overhang around for each of, so that the pages on the inside are protected. So you can see here what this looks like. I'm just kind of lining it up, and I have a little bit of fabric I need to trim off over here on the right side. I'm just going to use some scissors, and I know you should have fabric scissors, but again, I'm not a seamstress, so I don't have any, so I'm just using my regular old scissors. And then I will take this, I'm also going to actually tear off the backing, so now I have that kind of adhesive iron-on part there. And so I'm just kind of showing you how I'm going to lay it down when I get to my iron. And then I'm just trimming the corners, kind of not right up next to the chipboard, but kind of just maybe a little bit away. And that way, when I wrap the corners, it'll make for a really nice, neat, like almost mitered looking corner. So I'm just doing that on all. And this is the same you would do this if you were wrapping it with paper. It would be the same idea. It's just this time I'm using a fabric with a kind of adhesive back to it. So this is what it looks like after I have ironed it. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to this second piece. So that piece will be the front cover, and now I'm going to work on the back cover. And here's what they look like together. And then this green piece of fabric is going to wrap around both sides, and it's going to cover this spine part, and that will give me the spine that I need. I kind of based it how big my spine is on like the last journal that I made, and so I think my spine ends up being about 1.5 inches right here, and I'm just trimming that out so that piece is like 7 inches by 1.5 inches. And then I will line all of this up on my fabric piece just to kind of show you how it's going to look. So I want a little bit of this green to wrap all the way around, so it's going to wrap from the front to the back and cover the spine this way. So I am laying it out, and then so I end up only needing about a piece of fabric that's about 7 inches tall, and I think it's about 5 or 5.5 inches from like inches wide, and that will cover the spine and the wrap to the front and to the back. So I'm going to take this and lay this down just like this, but right side up on my ironing board, and then iron all that together. And when it's finished, it looks like this. So I have this piece now, you can see the spine, and this is how it's going to close. So it's kind of flimsy right now, but when I go in and secure the inside with another piece of fabric and some stuff, it will help stabilize that spine. But first I want to create the papers that are going to go inside. So I'm using some Strathmore Bristol vellum finish paper. It's, I want to say 100 GSM. It's really thick paper. I like using it for my mixed media projects. And so I'm cutting that down to 7 inches tall by just a little over 5, because I'm going to be trimming those down so that they're even. I'm taking my scoreboard here and I'm just going to score all of those pages. I have 8 pages in total. I have to do it a couple times because, again, this paper is really, really thick. So I'm just going to fold all these pages so that I can create the signatures for the inside of my journal. And I'm showing you here, I have them all tucked inside one another, and again, it's only 8 sheets of paper, but because this paper is so thick, it just would not do well if I were to leave it like that. And you can see on the right side how they kind of fan out. So I'm splitting these papers into 3 different signatures. So I will have 2 signatures that have 3 pages and 1 signature that has 2 in that. And they still kind of fan out a little bit, so I still have to trim those down, but it's not as bad. And this will also give my journal room to grow as I'm adding all of the beautiful pattern papers and journaling cards and everything from the kit that I'm using. So I just have, this is a self-healing mat, and I am going to take that and an X-Acto knife and a ruler that has a metal edge. It's important when you're doing this to use something that has a metal edge if you're running up against an X-Acto knife. And then I'm just taking them each signature separately and making sure the pages are tucked together well, and then I'm gonna put my ruler on here and just take my X-Acto knife and just trim the part of those that are kind of sticking out, and this will even up my even up the edges. You don't necessarily have to do this. You might like that style to have them kind of different. I've seen people do that, or kind of do a deckled edge, so it doesn't have to be even. But for my purposes for this time, I'm just going to go ahead and trim all of it down. And it's, you just go slowly and just make several cuts. It just works better to do it if you do it that way. So here I have all 3 of my signatures finished, and now I'm going to get them ready to bind into my journal here. And I'm just getting them set really even. And this is just kind of a trick when you have multiple signatures and you need to punch holes, but you kind of want them to be the same. But you could create a template and do it that way. But what I'm doing is I just have them all lined up on top of each other. Taking my ruler, I'm going to go in, first hole is going to be in the middle, so it'll be right at 3.5, and then I'm coming up an inch from each edge on the top and bottom. And I'm using a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. You can see how I just created a line with my pencil, so I will know where to punch all of those holes for each of the signatures. So I have a little awl here, and I'm just writing on here that this is the top and the first signature, because I just want to keep them in order now that I've marked them. And I'm going to use my awl, and I have this little foam pad, and I'm going to just punch holes into each one of these signatures where I made the mark with that pencil. And I'll do that for all 3 signatures. And now I am trying to figure out what I want to do to kind of stabilize the inside. And what I did is I just decided to use that same green fabric, and so I cut it down and took it to my iron and ironed that piece in there. So this is the inside cover, and most of this you can kind of see the cupcake through it, which is kind of funny, but it will get covered up so you won't be able to tell. And so now I'm taking the signatures and I'm just marking on this on the spine, the inside of the spine, where I want where these holes need to be, so that my signatures are going to line up really well, especially because I'm dealing with fabric. I don't want the fabric to fray at the holes or anything like that. So I'm just making sure that I'm marking these holes really well And then I will go back through with my awl and punch the holes for each one of these signatures. So I'll have three holes for each. And I'm just using, this is a We Are Memory Keepers awl. It came with the bookbinding kit that they have. In retrospect, I wish I would have used my other awl, because my other one is a little bit thicker and it would have made the holes a little bit bigger. But so you can see me, I'll be struggling a little bit to get the needle through, but it will work. And so here I am using some just light pink jute, and I'm threading it through the middle hole of this first signature. And I've done this before on my channel. It's a simple 3-hole pamphlet stitch, just really, really easy to do, but it'll give me a lot of room to expand my journal as I need to. And then I'm coming back into the middle through the top hole. You can see me struggling. This is where those bigger holes would have been a little bit easier to work with. I'm trying to figure out, I ended up using one of the little clamps just to help pull it through. So anyway, I'm coming through the top hole, and I'm going to go all the way to the bottom hole and go back out to the outside of the journal. And I'm pulling that through. You can see, like I said, I'm struggling a little bit. And then I have that, you want to keep that one piece long, and then I'm going to come back through that middle hole. And it's really important when you come back through that middle hole that you don't go through the thread that's already there. You don't want to split the threads. So just be really careful when you're coming back in that hole that you don't split any threads. And then as I'm coming back through, I want to make sure that each of these strings is on either side of that long piece in the middle. And then I'm just kind of showing you here, I've got one piece, one thread and then a tail on either side, and then I'm tying a knot essentially around that long piece, and that will keep everything really really secure. And I'll come back and trim that down here in a minute. And this is I'm about to do the third signature here, so I've already done the first and second, and this is the last signature. Again, I'm just going through going from the middle hole, and you can see I had to make these holes just a little bit bigger. I didn't quite get all the way through when I did it the first time. Anyway, so I'm going back through the middle hole and out to the outside of the book, and then I will come back inside through the top hole. I don't know why I was so fumbly with this time, but I just keep dropping things and everything. I have days like that. Anyway, so I'm coming back through the top hole and then all the way down to the bottom and going out. And I had cut my thread just a little bit shorter than I normally do, so I'm just needing to make sure I don't pull that inside piece all the way through. So I'm going to pull on that and keep it really tight, and then again go back through through that middle hole, back inside. Make sure you don't split the thread that's already there. And then I came through on this one, and I wasn't on either side, so I just had to go under with one of the edges just to make sure that both tails are on opposite sides. And then I'm going to tie the knot, and then I will trim down the excess. It's up to you how long you leave those. Sometimes I leave them long. I might trim them down later. And then the last aspect of this is I need to cover the inside covers, and I'm going to use some pattern paper here. I'm trying to decide. I decided to use this the back side of this paper, this polka dot. So I am just cutting this down so that it will fit just inside, so I'll have kind of like an 1/8 of an inch border, but it will cover everything here. And so I'm trimming it down to a little less than 7, and then I just kind of used a pencil to mark on it where I wanted to trim it down. It was just easier than trying to measure it exactly, and it will cover up. And this is the coordinating paper that you can get from the Bythewell4God kit that coordinates with the Walk This Way devotional. So I'm going to use some really heavy duty tape. I'm going to use, some people call it score tape. That's one of the brands, but this is actually the, excuse me, the scrapbook.com brand, and I just have it in a really wide size for things like this. And my phone died, so I lost some footage there, but basically just added the adhesive and then stuck down the papers to cover the inside on the front and on the back. So anyway, this is my journal that I will be working through for this month. If you liked this video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And until next time, bye-bye.